stories around the world to stories here at home. This is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Dilanjali Ananda.
I'm Movin Hettiarachi, and here are today's headlines. 3 European countries decide to relax the high-risk status imposed on Sri Lanka. Number of attendees allowed for a wedding has been reduced to 50. Strict interprovincial travel restrictions imposed. 14,510,000 vaccine doses administered to the people in the country thus far. The detection of COVID-19 patients in the United States has increased by 9-fold since July. A cabinet subcommittee to study teacher principal salary anomalies. Court order issued to remand former Minister Rishad Badruddin until the end of the current case hearing. Now on to those and more stories in detail. On today's top story, international attention has been directed on the progress of the accelerated and successful COVID-19 vaccination process implemented in Sri Lanka. Accordingly, 3 countries belonging to the European Union has taken steps to relax COVID-19 restrictions imposed on Sri Lanka. According to media reports, 3 European countries, Germany, France and Netherlands, have now placed Sri Lanka on the amber list from an earlier red listing. Accordingly, travel restrictions will be relaxed for travellers arriving from these countries to Sri Lanka and then Sri Lankans travelling to those countries. International community has directed its attention on the progress of the accelerated and successful COVID-19 vaccination process implemented in Sri Lanka.
Steps have been taken to limit the number of attendees for weddings to 50 persons from today. Head of the National Operational Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak, Army Commander General Shavendra Silva, said that the interprovincial travel restrictions will be strictly imposed from today. Meanwhile, Director General of Health Services confirmed that the country has recorded its highest mortality yesterday with 118 deaths. COVID-19 immunization programs have been initiated in all districts at present. A 24-hour vaccination program was initiated at the Diyatha Uyana premises in Battaramulla yesterday. Accordingly, the first and the second doses of Sinopharm vaccine will be administered at this centre operated by Sri Lanka. Another vaccination program was conducted at the Shalika Hall premises in Arahimpita. Accordingly, those who are above 30 years of age received the Sinopharm vaccine at the centre operated by Sri Lanka Police. 14,510,465 doses of vaccines have been inoculated under the COVID-19 immunization program thus far. 25,576 have been given the first dose of AstraZeneca vaccine yesterday. 3,620 have been given the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. 153,958 have been given the first dose of Sinopharm vaccine yesterday, and the second dose has been given to 307,267. 169 have been given the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine yesterday, and the second dose has been given to 215 persons. In the last 7 days, 1,727,664 doses of vaccines have been delivered to the people. The total 490,805 persons were administered with the COVID-19 vaccines yesterday. The percentage of persons received at least 1 dose of a vaccine of the population more than 30 years of age has increased to 97.95%. The percentage of persons inoculated in the Western Province has increased to 91.32. At least 1 dose of vaccine has been given to 97.08 in the Gampaha district, 89.83% in the Kalathura district and 86.5% in the Colombo district. The health authorities said that more than 75% of vaccine has been delivered to people in 23 districts. The Government Information Department said that people above the age of 60 years and those who are with serious illnesses and yet to receive the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine in the Western Province will be inoculated for 3 days from today. The eligible persons can register for the program through 1906 service. 1,992 COVID-19 patients were detected from the country today. Meanwhile, 2,644 patients left the hospitals today following recovery. The integrated home-based isolation and management of asymptomatic COVID-19 patients system was initiated from yesterday. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasamana engaged in an observational tour at the Colombo North Teaching Hospital yesterday. He visited the hospital premises to look into the reports pertaining to hospital patients' capacities and shortage of bodies storage of bodies of the deceased COVID-19 patients. Steps have been taken to transform Kaluthara District Community Health Centre belonging to Western Provincial Ayurvedic Department into a COVID-19 treatment centre. The newly established centre will provide treatments for COVID-19 positive pregnant mothers, mothers who breastfeed children and children in children's homes. State Minister P.R. Nishanta engaged in an observational tour at the centre today. Sumagavi Vidyalaya and in Kargampitya, Dehiwala has been transformed into a COVID-19 treatment centre attached to the Ayurvedic department. State Minister Sisira Jayakodi engaged in an observational tour at the centre today. Minister Nama Rajapaksa, State Minister Indika Anuruddha and Parliamentarian Madhura Vithanage visited the Colombo South Teaching Hospital to inquire into its present condition and the new hospital building currently being constructed at the hospital premises. A state-of-the-art intensive care unit and high-dependency unit have been established at the Ratnapura Teaching Hospital for COVID-19 treatments. The new units, constructed under the instructions of Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi, have been built at a cost of 25 million rupees. A national system team to manage patient beds for the treatment of COVID-19 patients has been donated to the Health Ministry. The relevant donation has been made by Dialogue Axiata and AvailNet private companies. A total of 107 persons have been taken into custody in the last 24 hours for violating quarantine regulations.
The president of the Sri Lanka Medical Association, Dr. Padma Gunaratne, says that the Ministry of Health has initiated an integrated home management program as the number of COVID-19 patients are rising in the country.
Because the number of cases, of course, are rising. It would be extremely difficult because that whatever that we implement, it takes another 2 weeks to see the effect of that implementation. So there is no immediate impact of any of the implementations that we do because it takes time. So we feel that the number of cases are rising. The Ministry of Health initiated this program on the integrated home management, that it is well organized. There is some relief to hospitals because a good number of patients now could be managed at home. But still the number that needs oxygen in hospitals are sort of unacceptably high. So there is a rise in need for oxygen and rise in number of patients, and there is a sort of a threat for exceeding the capacity of hospitals. Over next 2 weeks, what we see is what outcome of the way that we behaved over last 2 weeks, that is already decided. The contribution of vaccination drive is very much long term, you see, because that they vaccinated people fairly fast 1 month ago. Now we have a community who have received one vaccination. If in the outstation, the infection is not as rampant as in Colombo. So these people, if they could get their second vaccination and take care of themselves for another 2 weeks, so that they would get that protection of the vaccine. So there is no reason for us to criticize or to disturb the vaccination program. That has to be promoted and that has to be sort of expedited as much as possible. For areas where the epidemic, the cases are rampant, there is a good number of people who are still have not developed the adequate protection so that they carry the risk of contracting the disease.
Now taking a look at the situation of the pandemic in the US, intensive care unit beds are insufficient as the rapid spread of the Delta variant of the coronavirus has pushed cases and hospitalizations in the United States to a 6-month high.
Hospitals in the United States are filling up rapidly as the Delta variant sends COVID-19 cases surging to a 6-month high. The U.S. has averaged 100,000 cases for 3 days in a row, up 35% over the past week, according to a Reuters tally. That's largely due to Delta sweeping through unvaccinated swaths of southern states. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson said Monday only 8 intensive care unit beds were available in the state, while Texas Governor Greg Abbott asked hospitals to postpone elective surgeries for the time being. In Florida, which set a single-day record on Sunday with over 28,000 cases, according to the CDC, hospitalizations have been at record highs for 8 days in a row. That's led to renewed debate over vaccine and mask mandates. A growing number of top education officials have shifted gears, calling for mandatory vaccinations for teachers and mask mandates in schools. Meanwhile, the Pentagon announced Monday it would seek the president's approval to require military members to get vaccinated. Louisiana, Florida, and Arkansas reported the most new cases in the past week based on population.
Meanwhile, in Australia, on the sands of Bondi Beach, one of Sydney's wealthiest suburbs, surfers and seaside walkers jostle for space. However, in the West, where COVID-19 infections are the greatest, stores sit shut on the empty streets as Australia's most migrant-heavy neighbourhoods endure the heightened lockdown.
In the wealthy east of Australia's largest city, Sydney, surfers and seaside walkers jostle for space. Students are able to return to school and masks are not required outdoors. But in the city's west, one of the areas most densely populated by migrants in Australia, harsher restrictions and tougher policing have stoked resentment. People there are banned from leaving their homes and from any face-to-face work in an effort to contain COVID-19 infections. Lebanese restaurant owner of 12 years, Abdul Eldik, says the double standards are hard to stomach.
One rule applies for the west, one rule applies for the east, another rule applies for the north. It's hard, but what do we do? At the end of the day, you got to try to make it work. I don't need the government's money. I can make my own money. Just give me back my business.
Restaurants across Sydney are banned from seating customers and rely on takeaway to survive. But the reduced income in the West, coupled with restricted movement, has severely dented sales. The city's lockdown has exposed its socio-economic divide as it battles to contain its worst outbreak of the pandemic. That's not to say residents in the East, including some from the iconic neighbourhood of Bondi, aren't sympathetic to those in the West.
I feel for them horribly. I think it's really tough, and as I say, I think there's a lot of people out there that need to go to work. You know, they're doing a lot more of your kind of building site jobs, your hospitality jobs, and that's tough. And if you're wondering where the rent's coming from, like, you've got to go out and do stuff.
Amid questions about the effectiveness of Sydney's lockdown, New South Wales authorities said police have been asked to step up checks on how many people were being allowed inside small shops at the same time. The police and army presence has been a shock to some, although they are unarmed and focusing on community engagement, explains Western Suburbs councillor Bilal El Hayak.
Mate, people waking up every morning, police helicopters. I got a call last night at midnight, a message at midnight last night with someone complaining that their kids can't go to sleep because there's a helicopter on top of their house flying very low. It is tough times. And our community is suffering.
Councillor El Hayak now spends most of his days delivering food packages to people who don't qualify for pandemic relief. A helping hand that goes a long way.
On news back at home, the government has reached a decision to appoint a cabinet subcommittee to study matters relating to teacher-principal salary anomalies. Remarks were shared in this regard at the media briefing held to announce the cabinet decisions at the Government Information Department today. Accordingly, Ministers Dallas Alhapperuma, Vima Viravansa, Mahinda Amaravira and Prasanna Ranatunga have been appointed to the Cabinet Subcommittee. The newly appointed Cabinet Subcommittee will take all relevant facts related to teacher-principal salary anomalies issues in the consideration and further study the matter before submitting a report to the Cabinet of Ministers. Cabinet Media spokesman Minister Dr. Kehelia Rabukwala said that the issue pertaining to teachers had been deliberated for many years. He said that the Minister of Education of the 1994 Sri Lanka Freedom Party government, Richard Patrick, resolved the salary issue of the teachers. However, as a result of this move, the salary issue of the teachers was set aside when a decision was reached to rectify the salary anomalies issue of the state sector employees through the recommendations of the 1997 P.C. Pereira Salary Commission, he added. The minister further said that any subsequent government was unable to resolve the teacher-principal issue. Minister Rabukwala said that the powerful group in the trade union division of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, led by Vasanta Hadapangoda, was committed to providing solutions for the injustice occurred to the teachers and principals through the B.C. Pereira report. Accordingly, He added that the relevant issue was included in the policy statement for the first time in history due to the commitment of the SLPP trade union team led by Vasantha Handabangoda. The minister said that ministers Dallas Alha Perumal tabled a proposal to convert the service into an integrated service which was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. He added that this move was encouraged in an attempt to showcase government's honesty and transparency. He further said that the Subodhani committee, comprised of 5 top government officials, was appointed and the committee was led by the Education Secretary. He said that the recommendations of this committee were dismissed by the task force on the salary anomalies. The minister said that the government requested for an alternative solution in this regard, but the trade unions affiliated with the government rejected the proposed solution provided by the task force. He said that the solution should be in between the Subodhani committee recommendations and the recommendations presented by the task force. Accordingly, he said that decision was reached to transform this service into a conventional service in an attempt to resolve issues pertaining to other sectors as well. He further said that the behavior of the teachers should be considered at a time when steps have been taken to resolve these issues through a cabinet paper. He said that a total of 60 to 70 billion rupees will be required to resolve this issue. He said that they have been given the task to resolve this issue in the face of a COVID-19 global pandemic.
අධ්‍යාපන ලේකම්තුමා ප්‍රමුඛ එවකට හිටපු කණ්ඩායම සුබෝධනී කමිටුව එකක් පත් කරා රජයේ ඉහළම නිලධාරීන් 5 දෙනෙක්ගෙන් සමග. ඔවුන් නම් යෝජනාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළා. ඒ යෝජනාව බැටුප් සාකාර සාධන කමිෂන් සභාව විසින් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරලා ඔවුන් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරපුවාම රජය විසින් කිව්වා ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා නම් විකල්පයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. ඔවුන් ඉදිරිපත් කරපු විකල්පයට අපේ වෘත්තීය සමිතිය දේශපාලන වශයෙන් අපි කතා කරනවා. ඒ අයත් මේකට එකඟ වුණේ නැහැ. එහෙමනම් ඒ විසඳුමත් සුබෝධනී විසඳුමත් අතරමැදි විසඳුමක් ලබා දිය යුතුයි කියන මතේ රජයක් හැටියට අපි පැහැදිලිව ඉන්නවයි කියන එක බොහොම ප්‍රබලව මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ප්‍රකාශ කරා. මේ සම්බන්ධව ඇතිවී
Meanwhile, the cabinet has decided to vest the powers of the Minister of Finance to take necessary action to ensure the sufficient stocks of milk powder are supplied to the local market.
ඒක කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවකින් අනුමැතිය ලැබලා තියලා මේ වැඩ කරගෙන යනකොට මේ විදියට හැසිරීම සම්බන්ධව දෙපාරක් හිතලා බලන්නයි කියලා මම සියලු දෙනාගෙන් පැටුප් සහ කාඩ කමිෂන් එකේ තියෙන එකත් සුබෝධනී කමිටුව එකත් දෙකම පිළිගන්න බැරි තැනක ඉන්නවා නම් ඒකට මැද තැනකට ඇවිල්ලා ඒ කවදා ඉඳන්ද ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය විශ්ලේෂණයටගෙන ඒ 4 දෙනාගේ වාර්තාව මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයාත් සමග මොකද බිලියන 60ක් 70ක් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ
Cabinet media spokesman Minister Dr. Keheli Rangupalwa said that the Cabinet of Ministers has decided to remove the tax imposed on milk powder. He added that the tax amount, which is equivalent to 75 rupees, has been completely removed. He dismissed the reports on an alleged shortage of dal and sugar and that the legal action will be taken against those who conceal such essential commodities. The minister said that a massive effort has been taken by the government to maintain the price rate of rice between 90 to 98 rupees, which is affordable to the people in the country. However, the minister said that certain businessmen tend to act in an unjustifiable manner in this regard. Accordingly, he added that the Cabinet of Ministers agreed to increase the penalty in this regard from 2,500 rupees to 100,000 rupees.
අපි රුපියල් මට මතක විදිහට 175කට සමාන බද්දක් ඒ සම්පූර්ණයෙන් බද්ද ඉවත් කරලා මේ සම්බන්ධව කටයුතු කරන්න තීන්දුව කරලා තියෙනවා. පරිප්පුසියේනේ ඉංගයක් තියෙන විදිහක් නැහැ. මොකද මට මතකයි මේ චෝදනාව ගෙනකොට මාස 2කට ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වේ මාස 4කට 5කට හරියන සීනි රටේ තිබෙනවා ඒක. යම් කිසි විදිහේ කෙනෙක් සංගවාගෙන ඉන්නවා නම් යම් දේවල් ඒවත් ඉදිරියට ගැනීමට සහ ඒ වෙනුවෙන් නීතිමය රාමුව තුල ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට අපි පසුබට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම කියන්නට ඕනේ දැඩි උත්සාහයක යෙදෙනවා මේ රටේ මූලික අවශ්‍යතාවයන සහල් මිල පොරොත්තු දෙන ගණනකට එහෙම නැත්නම් රුපියල් 90ත් 98ත් අතර ප්‍රමාණයක තබා ගැනීමට හැබැයි මේකට මේ රටේ මුදලාලිලා එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ සම්බන්ධව ගනුදෙනු කරන සුළු පිරිසක් විශාල වශයෙන් මේ වෙනුවෙන් තාමත්ම අසාධාරණ ලෙස ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවයි කියන මතය තමයි ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ අනුව රුපියල් මං හිතන්නේ 2500ට තිබ්බ දඩේ රුපියල් ලක්ෂයකට වැඩි කරන්නත් ඒ සම්බන්ධව අනුමතයන් සියල්ල ලබා දෙන්නට ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය තීන්දුව කරා. මොකද හේතුව මේ ප්‍රශ්නය විසඳිය යුතු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. කීප දෙනෙකුට 5-6 දෙනෙකුට මේ රටේ සමස්ත ජනතාව මිලියන 22ක ජනතාව තාමත්ම පීඩනයට පත් වෙලා තියෙන බහුතරයක් ජනතාව ඒ මුදවා ගැනීමේ වගකීම රජයක් හැටියට අපට තිබෙනවා. නේ ගෑස් තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳවත් ජනතාව
Co-Cabinet media spokesman Minister Ramesh Patrana said that the public in the country has been inflicted with an unnecessary fear over the availability of gas. He said that declaration of bankruptcy by one gas company has been the main reason behind the issue. However, he added that Sri Lanka has adequate quantities of gas.
Minister Professor G.L. Piri says that the issuance of the results of the GCE ordinary level examination has been delayed due to the absence of teachers to conduct the practical examinations related to aesthetic subjects. The minister made these remarks while addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today. Minister Professor G.L. Piri said that online education is essential for the children at present. Since the schools in the country cannot be reopened considering the prevailing situation in the country, therefore he requested that the teachers not exclude themselves from the program. He said that 622,000 students face the GCE ordinary level examinations and the results of the examination cannot be issued since the teachers have decided not to take part in the practical examinations conducted on the aesthetic studies. He said that all measures have been taken to conduct examination and teachers have decided to opt out of the examination process. Therefore, the minister said that the issuance of the results has been delayed.
Colombo Magistrates Court ordered to remand former Minister Rishad Badiuddin until the conclusion of the hearing of the relevant court case. The relevant court order was issued when the former minister was produced before the courts today. Former Minister Rishad Badiuddin, who has been arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, continued to be detained for questioning by the Criminal Investigation Department. An investigation is underway on the alleged issuance of a permit for a copper factory to Isaf Ahmed, the suicide bomber who carried out the attack at the Cinnamon Grand Hotel during the Easter Sunday attack. The relevant court case will be taken up for hearing again on 18th August.
The U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka and Maldives, Elena Tiplitz, says that the United States and Sri Lanka share a vision of prosperity evidenced by their unparalleled export relationship shared by both nations. The U.S. Ambassador made these remarks while addressing an event to launch the capacity building program on export facilitation for the Sri Lanka Export Development Board recently. The Sri Lankan Export Development Board collaborated with the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the United States Agency for International Development support a partner activity to implement the program. The new initiative is expected to assist small and medium-scale enterprises in Sri Lanka to expand into global markets. The event was held under the patronage of Minister Bandula Gunawardena with U.S. Ambassador Tiplitz as the guest of honor. The program will improve the knowledge and skills of up to 300 EDB development officers in the trade procedures, export process and market access. The officers will assist small and medium enterprises and achieve export goals and connect with exports opportunities. The Export Development Board Chairman Suresh Dimal, USAID Sri Lanka and Maldives Mission Director Reed Aschilinsman and Ceylon Chamber of Commerce Chairman Vish Govindasamy were present at this occasion.
It's a pleasure to have a chance to witness the signing of the tripartite MOU this afternoon. The United States and Sri Lanka do share a vision of prosperity, and this is one of the ways that we can help achieve that and do so together. The U.S. is the single largest export destination for Sri Lankan products. It accounts for almost $3 billion a year, almost 1/4 of Sri Lanka's annual exports. From apparel to rubber, gemstones to tea and spices, the relationship is mutually beneficial. But we also know the relationship could grow and become more complex. And so for exports to drive growth, we know that small and medium enterprises need to become export-ready competitors. As the regional points of contact for small and medium enterprises, the Export Development Board's development officers already know that small businesses have an outsized impact on economies. And as such, of course, they are uniquely situated to help realize this vision. So today, through this tripartite letter of cooperation, we launched the training of the 300 development officers. It will improve their knowledge of trade procedures, export processes, and modes of market access. Using this knowledge, these officers will help small and medium enterprises become competitive players in international markets and hopefully boost the talents of entrepreneurs island-wide. They're going to coach Sri Lankan businesses, especially SMEs outside of Colombo, to develop and achieve export goals. They'll connect them with export opportunities, and they'll help local businesses go global through better understanding of and compliance with trade regulations in Sri Lanka and abroad. These development officers represent all Sri Lankan districts and ethnicities, and around 70% of the development officers in this program are women, which I hope will benefit women-led enterprises throughout the country. This initiative is a vital step toward linking businesses with buyers, increasing exports and incomes, and facilitating private sector-led growth. And I think in this most challenging time, as the world still struggles in the era of pandemic, focusing on some of the economic foundation that is going to lead to recovery is going to be crucial. Exports are going to play a very important role in that. So the United States is very proud to invest in this initiative, and I wish success for the program.
State Minister of Regional Cooperation Tharaka Balasuria reaffirms Sri Lanka's commitment for enhanced cooperation with the ASEAN Regional Forum. He made these remarks while speaking at the 28th ASEAN Regional Forum held virtually recently. Addressing the forum, the State Minister Balasuria appreciated the ASEAN Regional Forum for the initiatives taken to empower youth, sustainable use of ocean resources and promoting successful ocean-based trading system. He also appreciated the efforts taken on combating preventing cybercrime in the context of developing a digital economy through a collective mechanism. Sri Lanka further expressed its commitment to work in a tandem with the forum and contribute with a focused effort to promote ideas and best practices. State Minister Balasuria represented Sri Lanka at the meeting, which was chaired by the Foreign Minister of Brunei. Sri Lanka was appointed to be the co-chair of the intersessional meeting on nuclear proliferation and disarmament 2022 together with Vietnam and United States. This initiative, Sri Lanka will play a lead role in the area of use of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. At this year's ASEAN Regional Forum, Sri Lanka co-sponsored the joint statement to promote the youth, peace and security agenda, expressing Sri Lanka's commitment to invest in youth for future prosperity. All members endorsed the importance of enhancing regional and international solidarity and cooperation towards the collective and effective response to the COVID-19 pandemic and advancing global recovery. The meeting further affirmed its commitment to addressing the complex challenges posed by terrorism, violent extremism and transnational crime, and the importance of ensuring security of ICT supply chains for economic growth within the rapidly changing ICT environment. The Consumer Affairs Authority Act is expected to be revised. The amendments seek to provide necessary legal provisions to control the sale of essential consumer goods at higher prices by certain traders beyond the controlled price. Clearance of the Attorney General has been received for the respective bill. The relevant bill is expected to be published in the Government Gazette and subsequently submitted to the Parliament for approval. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for the proposal presented by the Minister of Trade. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal tabled by Minister of Agriculture to award the relevant procurements to import organic fertilizers and natural minerals and chelate plant nutrients for the Maha season 2021-2022 as recommended by the Special Procurement Committee appointed by the Cabinet of Ministers. The approval was granted on the 31st of May to import the amount of fertilizer required for the Maha season, which could not be fulfilled from local organic fertilizer production by following the competitive procurement procedure. Accordingly, international competitive bids have been called for Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited and Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Company Limited to procure the required stocks of fertilizer. Service has been requested from an Intellect Committee for Sustainable Agriculture. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to the proposal presented by the Minister of Agriculture to appoint a committee comprised of intellects in the relevant field led by Professor of Environmental Agriculture Priyantha Indralal Yapa of the University of Sabaragamuwa. Accordingly, the relevant committee expected to obtain a participation of all stakeholders to proceed with their process formally and provide required guidance for policy decisions. The government has provided approximately 156 billion rupees to 53,200 entrepreneurs under the Working Capital Loan Scheme. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to provide the opportunity to accomplish the working capital requirements of state ventures under the loan scheme. The government implemented the concessionary loan scheme titled Saubhagya COVID-19 Rehabilitation Facility under the supervision of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Steps will be taken to amend the Tourism Act to promote the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management into a tertiary-level higher educational institution. The relevant proposal tabled by the Tourism Minister was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers.
Cabinet spokesperson Minister Kelly Rambukvala stressed that the natural minerals and plant nutrients which are to be imported in order to produce organic fertilizer. He made these remarks at a cabinet decision meeting held today.
They're not fertilizer or other harmful thing, but there are certain components that are required for certain plant. For instance, coconut, you need 3 kilos. This is what I read. Out of which 2 kilos is the local, they call the organic. Then you have some potassium and nitrogen which has to come in to make it successful. Now, those areas, very specific area, the material will be imported to supplement, but not the which are classified as harmful. That will not be permitted. There are certain components that are required to, for certain plantation like the tea and coconut particularly, that non-toxic, that's a terminology of certain fertilizer which are required, which we don't have, which we cannot produce at the moment. Maybe as time goes on that we'll be able to embark on that as well. But right now that we are unable to, but we do not want to get the plantation suffer as a result of not having this particular kind of chemical components that are in the chemical they use. I don't know, when you say chemical, one might say they are not organic. But according to some of the experts, it's supposed to be some liquid which is required for the organic, and that is also supposed to be some organic. So those things are being under consideration.
Police spokesperson Senior DIG Ajit Rohana says that anti-narcotic operations, vice operations along with environmental operations are continued in order to trace suspects in connection with necessary offences.
We are conducting continuous anti-narcotic operations, vice operations and environmental operations in order to trace the suspects in connection with the offences committed against the environment and destruction of archaeological monument. In addition to that, vice offences. We have arrested 6 suspects, including a female suspect at Malabotuara in Udawalawa police area yesterday by Udawalawa police in respect of the offence of treasure hunting. In addition to that, 4 persons have been arrested by Parasangaswa police in respect of the offence of treasure hunting, and they would be produced before the magistrate today. Also, STF has conducted a special raid at Maravilla yesterday, and a person has been arrested along with 21 kilograms of cannabis mix modaka, and the suspect has been handed over to Maravilla police for further investigation. If you are having any information about narcotic substances, drug traffickers, or the persons who conduct offences under the excise ordinance, or destruction of forest or archaeological monuments or offences related to environment, kindly contact our 1997 centre.
Meanwhile, a decision has been reached to conduct as Kandiasala Perahera Festival without the participation of the public while adhering to health protective guidelines. Devadan Nilame Pradeep Nilangadala confirmed this decision was taken following a meeting held today. Kandiasala Perahera Festival was initiated yesterday following the carp planting ceremony. The first Kabul Perahera was expected to parade the streets on the 13th of this month, and the first Randoli Perahera will parade the streets on the 18th. The final procession will be held on the Nikini full moon Poya, which falls on the 22nd of this month. That's it for tonight's English News Update. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Good night.